In 1995, a 28-year-old trader quietly destroyed a bank that had survived Napoleon, 2 world wars, and helped finance the birth of America. He did it with one secret account, a lucky number, and an alarming amount of confidence. This is the entire Barings Bank story. In 1818, the chief minister of France looked around at the powers that ruled the world, and he counted 6. England, France, Prussia, Austria, Russia, and Baring Brothers. Not a country, a bank. Founded in 1762 by 2 sons of a German wool merchant in a townhouse in London, with nothing but credit and good manners. And somehow, within 50 years, people stopped asking whether Barings belonged on a list with Napoleon's enemies. They just assumed it did. This was the bank that financed the Louisiana Purchase, the deal that doubled the size of the United States before America could even really afford a bank account of its own. This was the bank that managed money for the British royal family. People called it, only half joking, the Queen's Bank. In 1890, Barings nearly died once already after a reckless bet on Argentine debt. And when it stumbled, the Bank of England didn't let it fall. They organized a rescue, because some things everyone agreed were too old, too respected, too permanent to simply disappear. Barings survived Napoleon. It survived a global depression. It survived 2 world wars. It did not survive a 28-year-old man with a math qualification he didn't actually pass. Nick Leeson grew up in Watford in a council flat, the son of a plasterer and a nurse. He failed his final maths exam. Somehow, this is not the last time in this story that failing at maths will not stop someone from being handed enormous amounts of money. He started as a clerk. He worked his way through the unglamorous back office plumbing of finance, the part where nobody wears a nice suit, they just make sure everyone else's numbers add up. And in 1992, Barings sent him to Singapore to run a new operation on the city's futures exchange. Here's the part that should have worried someone. They put him in charge of the trading desk and the back office that was supposed to check the trading desk. It's the financial equivalent of letting a student grade his own exam and keep the answer key and also be the only witness in the room. Here's a detail that got lost in the excitement. Before he even left for Singapore, Leeson had been turned down for a trading license back in London because he hadn't disclosed a court judgment against him for an unpaid debt. Nobody chased that thread. Nobody asked why. He passed the local trading exam in Singapore instead and stepped onto the floor of the exchange, a chaotic, sweaty pit of shouting men in colored jackets, using hand signals because the noise was too loud for words. Barings traders wore navy and gold. It looked from a distance like a stock market crossed with a school sports day, run by people making million-dollar decisions in the time it takes to raise a hand. He started making trades. And very quickly, he started making what looked like an enormous amount of money. By 1993, he was credited with 10% of the entire bank's profits. Not the office's profits, the entire bank's. He was earning bonuses several times his salary. In London, people started saying his name the way people say the name of someone who is clearly about to get promoted. He was, as far as anyone could tell, a genius. He was not a genius. Officially, Leeson's job was arbitrage, a fancy word for something almost boringly safe. Buy a contract cheap on one exchange, sell the identical contract for slightly more on another, pocket the tiny difference, do it 10,000 times. It's less gambling and more being a very fast, very boring money changer. What he was actually doing was almost the opposite. He was making enormous one-directional bets on where the Japanese stock market was headed and hiding the losing ones in an account numbered 88888. 8 is a lucky number in Chinese culture. Whoever picked that number had, at best, a very dark sense of humor, because this account was about to become one of the unluckiest 5 digits in financial history. Leeson's own version of how it started is almost sweet. A junior colleague made an honest mistake, lost a client 20,000 pounds, and Leeson quietly covered it to protect him, using this account, meaning to fix it later. It's a nice story. It has a hero in it. The official investigation looked at the account's records and found something less charming. It was losing money from the very day it opened. The kind, self-sacrificing origin story appears to be something Leeson wrote for himself afterward, which honestly tracks. This entire disaster runs on stories people wrote for themselves afterward. By the end of 1992, the account was down about £2 million. By the end of 1993, 23 million. By the end of 1994, over £200 million hidden inside a bank that thought it had just had a record profitable year. Some of what he was doing was a bet called a short straddle, which sounds complicated, but really just means betting that a market will stay exactly where it is. Imagine selling tickets to two different people, one who wins if the price goes up, one who wins if it goes down. As long as the price barely moves, you keep both their ticket fees and nobody collects. It's a perfectly fine bet, right up until something enormous happens and the price moves a lot. Then instead of a small loss, you owe money to both of them, and there is no ceiling on how much. And Leeson kept doing the one thing you're never supposed to do with a bet like that. When it started going wrong, he made it bigger. Every time he lost, he doubled down, certain that one big win would erase everything and nobody would ever have to know. It's the exact same instinct as a gambler at a casino at 4 a.m., insisting his luck is about to turn. Except this gambler's chips were an entire nation's banking system, and the pit boss was, unfortunately, also him. On January 17, 1995, at 5:46 in the morning, an earthquake hit the city of Kobe, Japan. It killed over 6,000 people. It left hundreds of thousands homeless. It is, on every measure that matters, a human tragedy. Full stop, no jokes. Resume normal pace. It also happened to hit at the exact moment Leeson had placed a bet that the Japanese stock market would stay perfectly calm. The market did not stay calm. It fell off a cliff. Any sane trader staring at that chart cuts the loss and goes home to think about their life choices. Leeson did the opposite. He bought more, much more. He tried to single-handedly hold up an entire national stock index with one increasingly desperate account, at one point personally holding half of all the outstanding contracts in the market. Other traders noticed a single, enormous, panicking position moving the market and traded directly against it. By the time the dust settled, the hole in account 88888 had grown to 827 million pounds, something like $1.5 billion American dollars, more than double the entire trading capital of the bank employing him. Roughly a quarter of that entire loss happened in a single day. To keep the money flowing, he'd been telling London he needed cash to cover client trades that didn't exist. And when the bank's one outside auditor got suspicious, Leeson forged a document, a fake confirmation of a payment worth millions, to make the hole look smaller than it was. It worked. Nobody in London wanted to look too closely at the man generating 10% of their profits. Believing him was easier and considerably more profitable than checking. He had, with extraordinary consistency, taken every single wrong turn available to him. On the 23rd of February, 1995, Leeson told his colleagues he needed to see his wife. He left a note. It said in its entirety, "I'm sorry." Then he fled the country. Back in London, the Bank of England's governor cut short his ski trip and spent the weekend trying to save a 233-year-old institution. In 1890, when Barings was in trouble, the Bank of England organized a rescue in days. This time, they tried everything. They even asked the Sultan of Brunei if he'd like to buy a bank. He said no. The problem, the governor admitted afterward, was that Leeson's bets were still technically open. Nobody could even say for certain how bad the final number would get. As he put it, nobody could recommend that the government sign a blank check for an amount nobody could name. So for the first time in 233 years, nobody came to save Barings. The bank that survived Napoleon, that helped build America, that banked the Queen of England, was sold in its entirety for £1, roughly the price of a coffee, to a Dutch bank called ING. 1,200 people in Singapore alone lost their jobs. More than 3,000 worldwide watched their employer disappear overnight. Ordinary bondholders, people who trusted their savings to the Queen's Bank because it sounded like the safest place on earth, lost roughly £100 million between them, money that had nothing to do with anyone's bonus. And Leeson, the man responsible, was arrested at Frankfurt Airport 9 days later, trying to fly home, extradited to Singapore, and sentenced to 6.5 years in prison. He served about 4, was released early after a cancer diagnosis, survived it, wrote a best-selling memoir, had Ewan McGregor play him in a movie, and eventually moved to Ireland, where, and you cannot make this up, he spent several years running a football club. Today, he works investigating financial fraud for a living. Barings Bank does not exist anymore. It hasn't for 30 years. Sometimes the oldest, most trusted institutions in the world don't fall because of a war, or a crash, or a conspiracy. Sometimes they fall because, for 2.5 years, everyone just really wanted to believe the numbers on a screen, and nobody thought to check the account with the lucky number on it. Thanks for watching the Curious Recap.